WeRiseNation.com.
This where the grown men stay so you can kill that noise. We be the best to do it, coming out of Illinois. So sit back and relax, close your mouth and listen. We bout to hit you with this knowledge that you've been missing. Listen closely to the Grown Men Podcast. We Rise Nation is the station with the gift of gab. We dropping knowledge on these topics that you wanna hear. We on point with it, get the picture loud and clear. If you seek it, you will find what you looking for. And once you hear us, it'll leave you looking for some more. Open the door, let us in, we got a special vibe. Now close the door, lock us in, and enjoy the ride. We about to talk about some things that make a lot of sense. And what we talking about, here sometimes will get intense. That's what we looking for, trying to spark a conversation. Join us live or you can listen on the We Rise Nation. This where the grown men stay so you can kill that noise. We be the best to do it, coming out of Illinois. So sit back and relax, close your mouth and listen. We bout to hit you with this knowledge that you've been missing. This where the grown men stay so you can kill that noise.
Welcome back to another edition of the Grown Men Podcast. I am your host, BAN, and welcome back to the show. Well, as always, we get a lot of interesting topics that come across that we want to talk about here at the We Rise Nation Network, and a lot of different things that come on. We got so many topics that people bring to the table and they want us to discuss on the podcast and give our opinions and our takes. And it's a couple that came across that we want to talk about. And for this particular one, I call it Big Risk and No Reward. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of people, especially during holiday times of the season, right? They're looking for ways to get money, and they'll do anything they can to get it. This is the mentality that we have right now, especially with money being tight, especially with the economy being the way that it is. People are looking for ways to get their hands on revenue. And when we was coming up, it's no different than right now. The only difference is the tactics have gotten more aggressive. There are things that we used to do that looked shocking back then, but now when you look at it with today's eyes, it's kind of tame, right? Because I was talking to someone earlier about this today, and I was saying that when we were coming up, it's certain things that we weren't going to do. We had a moral compass. We had a moral code, whatever you want to call it. We wouldn't cross that barrier. We wouldn't cross that line. However, in today's times, from what I've seen with my own eyes and what we know to be true, people will do anything for money. Now, I know we've been talking about this, and yet nothing should shock us, nor does it surprise us. My thing is, I just want to give our take here at the Grown Men Podcast on how these things go down from our perspective. I'm not saying we're right or wrong. We're just giving you our take here at the Grown Men Podcast from what we see, from the vision that we see through, right? So when I see people doing things, right, you got these crews. And these crews get together and they dedicated to doing whatever that may be. Whether it be stealing them vehicles so they can pull off bigger heists, or stealing those vehicles so they can go hit the op, which is the opposition, their enemy. These things happen all across this country. And quite frankly, I believe it happens all across the world. It's just in different ways. So people are taking these big risks, but they're getting no reward. Because at the end of the day, when you get caught, there's only two places you're going. You're either going to go to the cemetery or the penitentiary. Those are the only two places. So the bigger the risk, the smaller the reward in my eyes. That's the way I saw it. That's the way me and my guys saw it. So we wouldn't get involved in trivial, petty things. I had a couple of guys back in the day. They say they about to hit this lick, gas station. Boom, right? They get the squares, they get the lottery tickets, and they hitting the machine. So they did that a couple of times, right? And it got good. The lick was so sweet that they kept coming back for more and more. But that fifth time that they went back, wasn't no comeback from that. Because one went to the cemetery, the other one went to the penitentiary for a long time. So at the end of the day, what did they get? They hit a couple of gas stations and got a total of about $2,000. Is that what your life is worth? $2,000? And right now I'm seeing it where they're really televising what they're doing. Because see, at least back in the era when we were coming up, most of us back then, of course, that technology wasn't available. But I think most of us back then knew that if we started talking, we were going to get pinched. It was that simple. Silence and secrecy was the code. Don't say nothing. Especially when you can put the finger on somebody else. Because at the end of the day, if you snitched, when you went in to do your bid, there were going to be people on the other side waiting on you. And they're going to know exactly how to treat you accordingly for snitching. So back to today's times, right? And there are a couple of stories that I want to go over here. The first one is something that happened last year, but the way it's been publicized, to me, it just seems kind of crazy. It says Los Angeles County ex-postal worker gets 5 years in prison for bank fraud. A Torrance postal worker was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for stealing checks, debit and credit cards from the mail over the past 3 years, buying herself luxury goods and exotic vacations. According to federal prosecutors, 133 stolen credit cards and debit cards, 16 U.S. Department of Treasury checks, and a ghost gun were discovered in the Carson apartment of Mary Ann McDermott when law enforcement searched in December 2024. The 31-year-old was arrested in July after it was learned that she continued to make purchases with these victims' credit cards. More stolen cards were uncovered during a second search of McDermott's apartment. Prosecutors said McDermott posted her luxury purchases and vacations on Instagram, even flaunting stacks of $100 bills. She agreed to forfeit a Rolex watch and other luxury goods. From at least 2022 until July 2025, McDermott stole mail and activated stolen bank-issued cards online, used the cards to make purchases, and then sold some stolen cards to her co-conspirators. She also arranged to have her co-conspirators cash the stolen checks, usually by using fake IDs in the name of the check's payee. McDermott formerly worked as a letter carrier at the Torrance, Maine post office and has been in federal custody since July 1st. She pleaded guilty on August 11th to one count of conspiracy to commit bank fraud and has been ordered to pay $660,200 in restitution. So right there, that's telling me exactly one of the things we were talking about, because she took a big risk, then got her people involved with her, and they started going wild. Why? Because the money got good. The bigger the risk, the bigger the reward, is what she was thinking in her mind. But in the end, what did she get? Nothing. Yeah, she went big or go home. But at the end of the day, now you got to serve that time. Was it all worth it? And see, the problem is for her and a lot of people like her, it probably was. Because she got fame, she got notoriety, and she got to go on trips without having to earn a dime. So for a lot of these young people out here right now, this is their lick. This is their stick. This is what they are doing in order to get revenue. And they'll step on the backs of anyone that they have to. And there are more cases like this, but that's just a small example of how these crews are getting together and they're deciding this is a lick that's so sweet, I cannot resist doing it. But then you get these low-level criminals, right? And when I call them low-level, I mean the lowest of the lows. When you're walking up on elderly people, hitting them from behind and robbing them. Or they're on the train and you're beating up people that are in their 60s and 70s. Instead of manning up and taking on people who are your own age that will put you down. See, this is a coward act that continues to happen. But it's also a big risk for no reward. Because how much is an elderly person really going to have on them? Maybe $50, $60, $100 tops. So now, when they catch up with you, and they will because they have your pictures everywhere, because there are cameras everywhere. And if not that, somebody's going to talk. If someone gets pinched for something else who was with your crew, if you got 3 or more, divide and conquer has always been the key. They get you off in them rooms. They make you give it up. And one of you all is going to snap and turn on the other one. It's always been done. It's something that's going to continue to happen because guys just don't get it. They think that whatever they do at that particular time is justified because they have a want, not a need. And what they want to do is take it by any means necessary. Young, old, women, whatever the case. Because that's an easier task, right? Than running up on somebody who's going to give them some pushback. But not only that, for the simple fact, when you have to do it from the behind on elderly people, you must really be weak. But once again, that's part of this whole psyche of getting this big rewards. It's like a big rush from doing crime. And it's unfortunate in our society that this continues to happen. Another case, I think a man here in Milford, Massachusetts. A man is charged after police said he posed as an inspector and stole hundreds from a store in Milford. Jamal Ginyard, 40, is facing multiple charges. He was accused of gaining access to over $600 in cash in an open safe while posing as an inspection officer, according to the Milford Police Department. At around 3 p.m. on Friday, Milford officials received a call from an employee at Dunkin' Donuts at the 146 South Main Street, reporting that the cash had been stolen from the safe an hour earlier. Milford police detectives identified Ginyard as the suspect using CCTV and flock safety search. Ginyard of Acushnet was charged with larceny from a building, larceny under $1,200 by false pretenses, and trespassing. So right then, there's another one. I mean, $600. You're going to go to prison for some years for $600. And I'm looking at this guy, the picture of him. He walks in and he got that slick look like Yeah, I'm about to hit this sweet lick. And see, the thing is, he got away with it probably at some other places, right? And he probably just didn't want to quit. Because usually that's what happens. Because there are times where people go and they get something and then they get away with it, right? And then you get that feeling like, if I got away with it the first time, what's stopping me from getting away with it the second time? So like I said before, these are examples of the type of things that go on all the time right now. Because the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward in their minds. But in the end, they get no reward because you have to go away and sit on it for 5 years and think about how stupid you were for doing it in the first place. But this is our mentality. And unfortunately, the youth are picking up on it because, once again, everything is posted to social media. And everyone has social media accounts. And they piggyback off one another with these outlandish schemes that they have ran and gotten away with it. And that's the funny part about it too, because if you were that smart, if you were that brilliant in putting your schemes together, the first thing you wouldn't be doing is posting your ill gains on social media. Because now, not only the people who you stole it from, they're looking for you. The police are looking for you. Now you put a target on your back to people that are in your inner circle because they might want to get what you got. And if they're not in on it, and if you don't put them in on it, they'll rat you out. Because as we all know, there is no honor among thieves. It happens at the highest level of the federal government to the lowest level street criminal. There is no honor amongst thieves. You will be thrown under the bus. You will be ratted out. These are facts. These are not opinions. These are facts. Because people are going to talk. Because they don't want to get any on them. At the end of the day, it's about self-perseverance. Because people don't want to get caught for doing the crime. So they'll put it on you so you can do the time. This is what they want to do to us. And we allow it to happen because for the simple fact, we don't care. That's why you see 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds out committing crimes. And in some of these cases, you got the babies leading the pack. Anytime you have 12 and 13-year-old crews that are out here looking for sweet licks, they want to hit those ATM machines. So what are they doing? They're going out stealing other vehicles, some used as getaway vehicles, some used as the rammers that they ram into these places and then pull that ATM machine out of there. Big risk. But if you get caught, there's no reward. And the thing about it is, yes, you can get away with it once or twice. But how many times you gonna go to that well? How many times you gonna roll them dice before you crap out? We done all been there. We done all had the opportunity to hit sweet licks in our lifetime. I'm no different than any other youth that's coming up. Problem is, these youths get greedy. If you get it, get out of it and leave it alone and have some time to sit down and think, did I really just do the right thing in doing what I did? Because as you get older, you get more mature, at least most of us. Now, there are some of us that's still doing it. People that's my age and older. So they're still committing some kind of act, right? But they're not taking as big a risk as they used to. Because as you get older, you get a little smarter. You know that some risks are not worth taking. There's nothing to be gained but pain in some of these risks. Especially when you have a family, you have children, and you have grandchildren. Because at that point, you either should know better or this is what you want to do with your life. And in a lot of the cases, this is exactly what we want to do with our lives. We want to continue to run scams. We want to continue to hit what we call sweet licks because we don't want to work. A lot of us don't want to go to a job every day. We want to do whatever we can to get that money. So we do these things, and then we're not thinking about the repercussions. We're not thinking about the consequences. We're just going with the flow. And a lot of times these crews get together and all of them don't have the heart for it. But unfortunately, that peer pressure is leaning on them. And when that peer pressure leans hard enough, you cave in. It's natural. But at the same time, whatever goes along with the conflict that you're about to be involved in, you're going to suffer the fate. Just like the rest of your compadres. They're going to go down with you. And as I said earlier, there are two ways to do it. It's that penitentiary or it's that cemetery. And then at the end of the day, your people's going to be saying words over you because you're going to either be gone or you're going to be locked up. And they're not going to see you for a while. And you got a lot of these guys, especially here at home, in the city of Chicago and in the state of Illinois. They are telling you, and they have told you, especially over here in DuPage County, they're not playing. They're giving it away like free candy. A couple of guys just got sentenced last month. They say, here, vehicular carjacking with attempted murder. Here, take this 55 with you. Man, 55 for carjacking? Yes, 55 years for carjacking. And you got to serve 85%. Think about it. If you 30, that's the rest of your life, right? Ain't no get back from that. What are you going to do when you get out? I know you're not thinking about it, right? But if you listen to this podcast or anybody that's giving you the real of what's going to happen, take a listen. Take a listen before you go out and try to hit that sweet lick. Is it worth it? And a lot of dudes get in there, right? They get in there and they say, man, I did what I had to do and everything else. And they rough and they tough and they got their chest poked out. But after it sinks in that this is going to be your home for the next 25, 30 years, you start to think differently. You start to think about, what did I just do? I threw my entire future away for what? And if you happen to have had kids when you went in, then the only way they're going to see you for the next 25, 30 years is through bars. And then you're no longer there to raise them, which may be a good thing. You're no longer there to influence them, which also may be a good thing. But at the end of the day, if you changed your ways and you're looking to make amends, it's a terrible way to see your children. But this is the future. If you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing and keeping the children in check, what their future is going to look like. And the problem is, you got some of these parents who are out doing the same things with their children. That's the thing that gets me. When they're out committing the same crimes, it makes absolutely no sense to keep going down this road and repeating this cycle. However, we do it time after time after time, because we just don't get the fact that we can lose. We think that we're going to win every time, and that's just not the case. As I said earlier, I know a lot of my guys that were in robbery crews. It worked out a couple of times, but in the end, it didn't. And all the crews will tell you that the ones that survived that right now, if they being honest, they will tell you that it wasn't worth it. Because while us and the rest of they guys were out living free, walking around, breathing fresh air, and raising our children, they was locked behind bars. And in the case of a couple of them, they had kids, and them kids grew up to be killers. Or they grew up to be street boys in the hood. And you can't really be proud of that at the end of the day. I don't care what anyone says. You do not want to be proud of children that grow up to commit violent crimes for no apparent reason other than the fact that they had nothing else to do. Because that's a lot of the excuses that people use. And there's a lot of people in the community and faith leaders as well say, look, we need more things for the children to do. Mayor Brandon Johnson said we need more things for the children to do. I think there are things for the children to do, but they've gotten so obsessed with other things, right? The outside world, the online world. All of these things are registered in these kids' head. That's why you got now 10, 11-year-olds going around stomping down parents of other children that they are beefing with. This is what it's come to. And I know, look, we know atrocities have happened for centuries in this world, far worse than the things that we're dealing with right now. But even so, we have to look at this for what it is right now today. Because there was a time where things swung in a different direction, right? There were times in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s where we became more civilized, and even into the 90s a little bit. But then for some reason that worm turned, and as I said on previous podcasts, you can go back and listen to them. It all stems from a lot of us going away to penitentiaries and not being there to raise our children. It all stems from that. So there's a lot of different ways we can look at these things, right? We can look at them from a standpoint of saying, you know, the right upbringing and all that goes with it. But at the end of the day, common sense has to take over as well. If you're not illiterate, if there's nothing wrong with you mentally, there's no reason to be out doing these things other than you want to do them. And people don't like to hear that. They like to always try to come up with a reason or manufacture an excuse for why people do what they do. Sometimes we just behave badly because that's what we want to do. And I'm not going to make an excuse for people who go out and do those things. Because to me, if you're going out robbing people, if you're attacking elderly people, if you're attacking children, and if children are big enough to attack parents of other children, then they need to face serious consequences. Not a slap on the wrist. No. You go sit down for a couple of years, depending on the severity of that crime. If you commit a murder, you pay restitution to that family for the rest of your life. That's what you go to work for. Enough money for you to eat and clothe and house yourself, and the rest goes to that family of that person you murdered. That's fair. If you rob from a store, then you pay that store back in twofold. If you attack an elderly person, then you must be made to serve the elderly. That is proper punishment in my eyes. But hey, I'm just a podcaster, right? What do I know? I know about real life. I don't have an expertise in all of these different things, you know, when it comes to that. But when it comes to real life, yeah, I'm an expert on that because I've lived through it and I've seen a lot of it. So I can commentate on these things because I've seen it and I've been through it. And the simple fact, I've sat back and watched guys do what they do. Even though they were told not to do it, they did it anyway. So what can you do with that? Because at the end of the day, they're still going to do whatever they want to do regardless of what you say to them. So at that point, You either have to walk away, talk to the authorities, or just turn your back like it never happened and deal with it. But this is what goes on. Another case that just came up. Chicago gang members federally indicted for 13 alleged murders. Now, how did they find that out? So, right here in our hometown, city of Chicago, 6 alleged Chicago gang members were federally indicted in a case involving 13 murders, armed robbery, and drug trafficking. A federal grand jury recently indicted Dante Harper, age 29, Tyon Foy, age 31, Taiwan Taplar, 25, Robert Lee Thomas, 22, Davion Harris, 28, and DeAvon McClure with racketeering conspiracy. Authorities believe the group committed multiple acts, including murder, armed robbery, and drug trafficking from 2019 through March 2025. Additionally, Harper, Foy, and Taplar are facing federal murder charges. Besides the murders, Harper and 2 others, not charged at this time, are accused of targeting a funeral during the summer of 2020. The shooting happened outside of Rhodes Funeral Home in the 1000 block of West 79th Street, and 15 people were wounded on that day. A timeline of the alleged murders and names of the victims are per document. So they got a whole list of who was shot and at what times. So on March 15, 2019, Harper accused of shooting and killing Antoine Fields. April 1st, 2019, Taplar accused of shooting and killing Brittany Rice and Zenobia Brantley. July 26, 2020, Foy accused of driving someone to shoot and kill Chantel Grant and Andrea Stoudemire. August 3rd, 2019, Taplar allegedly drives Foy to shoot and kill Calvin Say. August 4th, 2019, Taplar accused of driving Foy and McClure to allegedly shoot and kill Cornelius Jordan at a memorial for Say. May 13th, 2020, McClure accused of driving Harper to kill Paul Harris. July 14th, 2020, co-conspirators, not charged at the time but to believe to be in the gang, shot and killed Donald Weathersby. October 14th, 2020, Harris allegedly drove people not facing charges at the time in the deadly shooting of Osama Albin in Romeoville. February 26, 2001, Harper and Thomas allegedly shoot and kill Dantrell Johnson. April 8, 2021, Harper accused of shooting and killing Daryl Robertson on I-57. April 1st, 2021, Harris accused of shooting and killing Harold Green. Racketeering conspiracy generally carries a maximum sentence of 20 years in federal prison. Harper, Foy, and Taplar could face the death penalty if convicted of certain murders in the indictment, according to federal prosecutors. This story is courtesy of WGN. They just came out with it, by Andy Covell. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. But this is an example of what I've just been talking about. We're talking about these crews getting together and targeting their enemies, their rivals, while also running the open drug market, while also hitting licks when on robberies. So they got their foot in everything, their hand in everything, right? They're involved in it all. And at the end of the day, big risk, no reward. Because what are they going to gain for that now? A couple of them are facing the death penalty. And if they murdered someone, sometimes that's the way it is. I know there are a lot of advocates out here that are against the death penalty. I understand that. I don't want people being killed in the name of the state or whatever the case may be. But sometimes when you know the laws and you go into this thing and you still commit these crimes, then you have to face the consequences. Because at the end of the day, you've given up your right to live when you kill someone else. The last thing I would ever want to do is murder someone. I've told people several times before, I hope it never comes to that point where I have to commit that crime. Because there's really no justification for it at the end of the day. And yes, me, just like everyone else, we have, a boiling point, right? When something goes wrong, we all have a boiling point. Sometimes we have to be able to control ourselves, and it's so hard to do so. But in the case of when you get these crews together, there's so much testosterone flying around between guys that nobody's there with a cooler head, and cooler heads never prevail. So when the hot heads win, they're at the top. They're the ones who ultimately make the decision who they're going to kill, who they're going to rob, and what they're going to do. And they want to be known for that. They'll say, yeah, that's my work. I did that. And they're proud of it. For whatever reason they did it for, they're proud of the fact that this is what they are doing. And the others in the clique, they either going to bow down or lay down. It's that simple. Win at all costs. The bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. That's the mindset. That's what we know. But at the end of the day, you're not really winning. You're losing. You just don't know it. You think that you're winning. And even when you go to the penitentiary, you think you're going to be winning. Because you think you're going to be the big boss in there because you committed heinous acts. Well, that's where it changes. Because see, in there, you become a number. That means you're owned by the federal government, especially Fed time. And look who's running the federal government right now. Who's to say they won't ship you out of this country? That's where the real pimping starts to kick in. But see, you didn't think about that when you was out hitting these sweet licks and committing these murder and creating terror in these communities. If you got beef with somebody, go see that person face to face. Don't drive up on them. See, I always thought drive-bys were for cowards. And I still believe that. If you want to get somebody, you go man to man. You go face to face and say, I got beef with you. Let's settle it right now. One of us gonna walk away and one of us is not. That's how you do it. If you want to be gangster, if you want to be real about it, you don't shoot and run. You shoot and stay there. You wait for the cops to arrive on the scene and say, I took him out. Yeah, this is my work. That's being a man. Anything else is being a coward. You're not real. You're not a gangster. You're not holding it down like you're supposed to do, because that's what we would have did. See, in our era, that's what guys did if they did it. A lot of people knew what was going on in the neighborhood. And there were some people who they knew that they weren't going to tell on because they knew the consequences from that. But see, these guys right now, the way they roll in the crews, you got to understand, the OGs have gotten old. So they can't control these guys no more. It's out the window. Them OGs got old. We done got older. As I said myself, I don't give them advice on what they should and shouldn't do. I just show them the consequences of what may happen to you and what may happen to your family. And if you give a damn at all, you would listen. But if you don't, then you're going to walk that path and then you'll find out the hard way, like so many of these other guys. It's so many stories that we can talk about right here at the Grown Men Podcast because they happen all the time. But it will be futile to continue to talk about it on some level because for the simple fact there are people who listen, but it goes in one ear and out the other. They're not receptive to the information that they're receiving. Or they say, oh, gee, it ain't like that. It ain't like it was, man, when you came up. Or, oh, gee, this. Or, oh, gee, that. No, the simple fact of the matter is, as I said before, and I talked about it with many people, and me and my guys, we talk about it. When you are raised in a single parent home, and most of the time it's a woman, then you grow up and you have different ways. You don't have ways like we did when we came up. Because, see, we knew better. And at the end of the day, if we didn't know better, we had our guys that put us on the straight path. But we didn't have these feelings where we look at the next man and the first thing we want to do if we got a weapon is pull it out and shoot. That's all we know. And see, as I said before, I was talking to someone earlier about these interchangeable characters that I see. And I see them every day. And I'm not sitting up here, you know what I'm saying, just talking off the top of my head. I'm speaking on things I actually see every day. And these guys are like carbon copies when I see them. They all look the same. They all think the same. They all sound the same. They're skinny as a rail, as a microphone stand, right? Their pants are sagging down. They got the backpack on their back. They're not going to school. What do you think is in it? I see them every day on the trains. I see them in downtown, walking around, looking for something to do. What are they exactly looking for? See, these are the questions that we tend to ask all the time. And people come up with various reasons and excuses for this type of behavior. But see, I'm not coming up with no excuses for it because I see it for what it is. Most of these guys are lost. They need water because they're thirsty. And they're thirsty for the knowledge that they have never received. And the ones that have weren't receptive to it, as I just stated. So the simple fact is they're going to continue to carry on with what they're doing until someone stops them. And usually they're stopped in one or two ways, and we've already addressed that. You're either going 6 deep or you're going 6 behind the concrete cell. Either way, that's where it will end up. And then your parents will be left to pick up the tears if they cared. But see, in a lot of these situations, these guys don't respect their parents. So at the end of the day, how can the parent grieve a child that didn't love them and didn't love themselves? It's a hard thing. And some of the parents gave up. They can't do anything. These guys been diagnosed as being schizophrenic to having ADHD or all that stuff that goes along with that. I understand all of that. I understand how chemical changes the way people think. But then again, you got some people who just want to do what they want to do at all costs. And they don't care about anything else but themselves. So how do we stop this, right? So how do we stop people from taking that big risk for no reward? It's simple. Start locking people up. And then they'll get the message. And I know a lot of people love to talk about mass incarceration not being the answer. I understand that. But that's for smaller things. We no longer charge people for marijuana anymore. That's legal in most places, right? They should not be going down for small drug crimes. However, carjackings, attempted murders, shooting people even though they may be criminals themselves, that has to be a crime of serious consequences. We can no longer give these guys a slap on the wrist. They deserve much more than that. And maybe then other people will get the message that this is not going to be tolerated. That's why I like what they're doing in DuPage County. I love it. And a lot of people say, well, they're going to be discriminating against black Americans. No. If black Americans are out there committing crimes of any sort, whether it be against white Americans, black Americans, Latino Americans, Asian Americans, and etc. and on, then you have to pay the price. It's simple as that for me. It's cut and dry. Because I'm tired of seeing these guys every day, which I call goons, because that's what they are. They're goons. You're not gangster. You're goons. You weigh 120 pounds soaking wet. You walking around with a gun that's bigger than you, that you can't aim and don't know who you're going to hit when you shoot it. See, that's another thing about these guys. As I said before, there's nothing manly about them. There's nothing manly about pulling out a gun and shooting at someone. There's nothing manly about that. That just shows your cowardice. And a lot of these young guys out here need to be put in place. And the way to do it is to cut off any kind of reward that they get from it. Meaning as soon as they try to hit that sweet lick, boom, you get your left hand cut off. Soon as you try to hit another lick, boom, you get your right hand cut off. And so on. Until you learn that this is something that is not going to be acceptable in our communities. And nowhere in the world should it be acceptable. Because we have this thing that we think that we're untouchable. Because people are so afraid of us that they're not going to say or do anything to us. So when they see us committing these crimes, they're just going to keep their mouths closed because they don't want it to happen to them. That's bull. If you see it, it's in your neighborhood, it's in your community. Let someone know that this is going on. And by the way, it's not called snitching. If you selling dope or drugs in my neighborhood, in my community, and I say, hey, I tell the people, the police, hey, I don't want these people doing this in my neighborhood, that's not snitching. See, the problem is, once again, they get the misconception of what snitching actually is. Snitching is when both of y'all are in the same deal. You're all in the same boat, like these crews out committing these robberies. You're all in the same boat. And if you all go down and one starts to talk, or the second one starts to talk on the other three, that's snitching. But if you're out trying to live a regular, normal life and don't want any part of that, and you see somebody committing an act of violence against someone else who has nothing to do with that, and you tell the proper authorities, that's not snitching. That's doing your job as a concerned citizen. That's what that's called. Doing your job as a concerned citizen. Because they don't want that in their area. They don't want that on their block. And see, a lot of the times, people like to go to the quieter blocks and they do some things because you got a lot of elderly, a lot of retired people who just want to live their life and with dignity and respect that they've earned from working so hard. And these guys come into them neighborhoods because they feel it's easy to do it. So they run up in these people's houses and they commit burglaries and they assault these people because they know it's an easy target, a sweet lick. Couple of guys went in on a 73-year-old lady and they took her stuff and all her things like that, but they got caught. And guess what? They're going to get that big time. You're going to get that. Here, take this 25-30 with you and see how you like that. At the end of the day, that's what these people need. That's what these guys need. And you got the 10 and 11-year-olds who are out jumping on the parents and things of that nature. And they're going to get supervision, and they should have it up until the time they're 21, and they should continue to be monitored and required to learn some kind of skill to go to school. And they should only be allowed to do things that's going to help them in an educational manner. Maybe they can turn their lives around. And any of the parents should hang their heads in shame. Because if I had a 10 and 11-year-old out jumping on somebody in a crowd, that's exactly what would happen. Because that's how my mom would have felt if I would have did that. She'd have hung her head in shame because she didn't raise me to act in that manner. I did that because I wanted to do it. So I'm getting tired of people making these excuses when these guys want to take these big risks for no reward. If they want to continue to throw their lives away, fine. If you want to take a risk that may end your life, fine. That's your business. But don't do it to other people. If you want to rob moving freight trains, one day it might roll over your body and that'll be the end of you. Take that big risk and come back with no reward. Because the bottom line is that's what's going to happen. There isn't going to be this fairy tale happy ending that a lot of these guys foresee, where they retire from the crime game and then decide to get legal and open up a business. Yes, a lot of guys have done that in the past, but they haven't committed acts of grand theft, larceny, and attempted murder to do so. People may have sold illicit drugs and then went legit. It happens. And a lot of people say, well, you know, whatever, how they feel about that, right? But at the end of the day, if somebody survived that, because it's a gamble that you survived that, that's a 50-50 chance you're taking being in that business. Trust me, I know a lot of things that done went down in that business. Not going to talk about it here on the Grown Men podcast because it ain't meant to be talked about. Some things you keep to yourself until the day you leave this earth. And that's the way I do it. But back to taking those risks, the main thing about it is you think that you'll be set for life. You're going to take these luxurious trips. You're going to do anything under the sun, and everybody on your social media accounts are going to know what you did. That makes you important. That makes you a big man or woman. And a lot of them see this as what they're doing right now. You know, that once again, the old phrase that they retired, YOLO, you only live once. They're still living it. They just don't say it. But this is the way they feel. They feel like if you don't have financial means, then you're nobody. You're nothing. It's like we talked about, me and Mark, a couple of weeks ago about that, right? And chasing the bag. It's the same thing here with the big risks. Because the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward is the mentality. But the bigger the risk, the lesser the reward is the reality. Because in the end, you get nothing. And then you have to start all over again from nothing and build your way back up in a different manner this time. Because if you go to the federal penitentiary and you have, you know, the guidance and you get the knowledge that you should get and you're allowed to rejoin us in society, then you have to find another way to live, an alternative to live your life, because it's not going to be the same as it was before. So my final thought is, look, if you're out here with your crew and you're thinking about the next lick to hit, think about the next time that it may not work out for you. Think long and hard of the consequences that you may suffer when you're out on the streets committing violent crimes, looking for that big risk with no reward. Well, folks, I'm glad you came in to listen to me talk about this topic because I feel it's a very important topic. And between now and next week, we'll have more topics to talk about. Head on over to WeRiseNation.com, See what we got going on over there. Podcast links are over there as well. You can find our podcast everywhere on the networks all across the web. Well, folks, until next week, I am your host, BAN, and I will talk to you soon.
This where the grown men stay so you can kill that noise. We be the best to do it coming out of Illinois. So sit back and relax, close your mouth and listen. We about to hit you with this knowledge that you've been missing. Listen closely to the Grown Men Podcast. We Rise Nation is the station with the gift of gab. We dropping knowledge on these topics that you wanna hear. We on point with it, get the picture loud.